Greetings, Otaku Faithful. Thank you for joining me again this week. Once again, it's Larry Williams, OAW Commander-in-Chief, and I'm here to bring you yet again another Sons of Anarchy episode review right here on Otaku Assemble! Weekly, as always, to bring you the latest in this week's Sons of Anarchy episode review. Now, this is Season 4, Episode 7, entitled Fruit for the Crows, and once again, another appropriately titled episode. Now, this week's episode gets off to a quick start from the gate, which was actually pretty nice. You know, it was a change of pace to pretty much what we've been getting this season, because for the most part, most of the episodes, you know, they start off a little light and then they progress into the, you know, the heavy shit towards the end, and then they kind of come back down a little bit. This one got heavy straight out the gate, and pretty much we come into this week's episode piggybacking off of last week's episode. As you all will recall, at the end of last week's episode, Wayne had slipped the death threat letter in her driver's seat. And of course, well, this week's episode, two things happen. Two things kick off this week's episode. The first being Gemma discovering the letter in Tara's car, and then, you know, telling her about it. And then the second thing being when Jax and the rest of the club were checking out Alvarez's operation with the cocaine, there was an attack on the site. And of course, you know, Alvarez, well, a few Mayans were murdered, and Alvarez, he got shot, in which case, you know, the club went, scooped him up, and they brought him back to the clubhouse where he could be protected and whatnot. But pretty much this sent the events of this episode into motion, because after that attack, we get Jax tracking down the two killers, pretty much tracking them down to this low end apartment complex. And once the reinforcements arrive and, you know, they bust down the door and try to, you know, try to take care of the guys who did the shooting, they find out that apparently those guys had been hired by a rival cartel. So, and then of course there were casualties in that confrontation. So, you know, all season long we've been seeing, like, pretty much the side effects of the Suns' deal with the cartel, and you know, all of the ramifications of that decision. But, you know, this week it just adds to it. Why? Because now, have you guys been keeping track of the body count? Because I lost count. You see what I'm saying? And this week we added what? 1, 2, 3, I think. Well, if you include the Mayans, that's what? 1, 2. That's like 4 more to the body count, you know? So already, it's like I said, this thing just keep building up. Now, going back to what I mentioned earlier, what was going on with Tara, pretty much, as you know, Wayne was the one who put the letter in Tara's car to pretty much put her on high alert, because he knew that Clay was going to make an attempt on her life. So he just wanted to put her on notice. It's the same reason why Wayne spoke to Sheriff Roosevelt in last week's episode, telling him, hey, I think Tara's in danger, and why in this week's episode, towards the end, he talked to Tara's supervisor, because he really is trying to look after her. Whereas last week's episode, Clay, he told Romeo, yo, I got this internal threat, I need you to take care of it. And then, of course, and I don't know how the hell Clay was able to find out that Wayne was the one responsible for putting the note in Tara's car. I guess he just came about it through process of elimination, because when he talked to Alvarez, because Alvarez talked to Romeo about it, and then he got back with Clay and he told him, nah, man, Romeo didn't do it, that's not his style. So I guess Clay just figured, well, shit, you know, well, yeah, I mean, process of elimination. Who else knew that Clay wanted Tara gone, other than him and Romeo? Wayne. Who else could have possibly put the letter there? Wayne. So yeah, I guess he just figured it out through process of elimination. But once again, I have to make note of this. If Clay is so goddamn clever, where he can narrow down who placed the letter in the goddamn card to Wayne based off a process of elimination, why the fuck you didn't figure out that Juice was the one who took the goddamn cocaine in last week's episode? I'm sorry, I just need to point out that inconsistency of intellect there. If he's so goddamn clever about that, why the fuck he couldn't figure out the mystery of the missing kilo in last week's episode? Okay? Now, I know Clay ain't the sharpest tool in the fucking shed, but I'm sorry. When he's as incompetent about that in last week's episode, and then all of a sudden he's Sherlock fucking Holmes in this week's episode, that's kind of hard for me to believe. You know? Clay's not that goddamn smart. He paranoid, yes, Clay is probably paranoid as shit, which could have led to that deduction, but what I'm saying is he ain't that damn smart, okay? Just throwing it out there. Okay, so what else occurs in this week's episode? Of course, after the death threat with Tara, they put the girls on lockdown, and Opie, he went and reached out to Lila, but apparently Lila split. She's gone, and I don't know if we'll ever see her again. But, yeah, homegirl, she skipped out, you know. Oh, well, another one bites the dust, right? Good riddance to bad rubbish, right? And not that I had anything against Lila. I just thought, I just thought she was just filling in, you know. Because, like I said, you know, if you will refer back to season 1, Opie was married. Happily married to Donna. Well, happily married to Donna. But, when they introduce Lila as Opie's love interest, it's like you're just a fill-in. You're an understudy. You're a substitute. So that's why I never really got attached to Lila. You know. And then of course, well, actually no, I'm gonna save the Juice thing for last. One thing I do have to mention took place in this week's episode, which shocked the shit out of me, was Bobby made a notion to vote for a new prez. He challenged Clay's, challenged his spot as president, and they were supposed to vote on it at the end of this week's episode. But based off of the preview for next week's episode, I'm not too sure about this, but I think this is what's going on, or at least this is what I'm hoping is going on. Because Bobby notioned for a vote for a new prez, that means that by doing so, until the vote takes place, Clay's presidency is on standby. And so I'm hoping that what happens is they can't really maneuver until that gets taken care of. You follow? I really hope it's not one of those things where it's like, okay, Bobby just made the notion, nobody showed up to vote, so fuck it. Okay. Because based off of, I mean, apparently that's going to be going on in next week's episode, is that they still have to vote on it. So I'm hoping it's something like that. Like, you know, until that gets settled, they can't make a move. Which is good. Why? Because it buys them time. Let's face it, the club's been moving way too fucking fast. Towards the end of last season was when they got the gun deal with the Irish Kings, right? Season 3 ends, they go into the pen, they come out, and already they got the cartel deal with the cocaine going. They're moving way too fucking fast, and this whole thing is just going to blow the fuck up, right? Which will lead me into the final topic for this review, and that is the whole Juice storyline, which I think could have come to a conclusion in this week's episode. Here's the thing. Of course, we all know what happened with Juice in last week's episode when he stole the kilo, took the sample, tried to put it back. Homeboy called him. He killed Homeboy, blamed the stolen kilo on him, got off in the clear, right? Check this out. Okay, apparently, Juice, he made a stand against Sheriff Roosevelt in this week's episode where he told him, yo, you don't get the sample until I get to meet the dude who's making the deal, i.e. the assistant attorney. However, the assistant attorney's like, well, look, man, I need to maintain my anonymity. I think anonymity. I need to maintain my anonymity. All right. I need to stay in the shadows. I can't come out. I can't come out yet. So he says no. He gets the sample, then I'll reveal myself. Oh, so of course, Roosevelt, he's like, well, how the hell you want to do that? He was like, hey, look, man, tell him, have him meet you on the street with the sample, arrest him for possession. Then I'll go ahead and I'll introduce myself and all that jazz. He's like, dude, that's entrapment, which we all know is against the law. And of course, Roosevelt, he's not comfortable with this shit. Why? Roosevelt's a straight shooter. He's a nice guy, right? The whole goal of this whole fucking investigation was to go after the cartel. But it seems like the assistant attorney is picking at the Sons so much so, okay? Like, the shit is crazy. And then you got Roosevelt. Now he's starting to second guess the assistant attorney, so much so to the point where the assistant attorney threatens him with going over his head. He's like, look, Roosevelt, Eli, okay, we're using first names now. He's like, yo, Eli, I like you, bruh, but look, you're going to go ahead and you're going to take care of this. Otherwise, I'm going over your head. I'm sorry, but that does, someone who I want to work with, someone that I trust, who trusts me, they wouldn't have pulled no shit like that. So I'm pretty sure Sheriff Roosevelt is like, you know what, dude? I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to play your little game. But fuck you, sir. Okay? Honestly, because that's fucked up. If they really were boys, if they really were, supposed to be working together for the greater cause, and if they really trust each other, he wouldn't have pulled no shit like that. He wouldn't have forced Eli's hand like that. That's fucked up. So, of course, Eli, he went ahead, he went and did it. Now, Juice is in an even bigger spot because check this out. Now the whole heritage thing that they were going to, try to pull with Juice, now that's irrelevant. Why? Because now Juice has to help them. Otherwise, they're going to send his ass back to prison as a rat, unprotected, on a fucking cocaine charge. So then, of course, at the end of the episode, what does Juice do? He decides to take matters in his own hand, and decided to go out. Chain around the neck, jumped off a tree. Decided to go ahead and end that whole thing. Here's the thing, though. One thing I did catch when the episode ended, if you all will pay attention, once the screen fades to black, when you can still hear the audio, it sounded like the tree branch broke because you heard a branch snap and then you heard a thud. Okay, so for all we know, Juice might still be alive if the tree branch broke before he before he went out. So am I keeping my fingers crossed on it? Not really, because even though I like Juice, and even though I like the fact that they gave him a much larger role in this season, I didn't like Juice in this season. I think it's fucked up what they did with him. Yes, he got a bigger role, but the manner in which it happened was kind of fucked up. Besides, I think just pretty much just like all the other deaths that have occurred in this series, in some shape, form, or fashion, they have contributed to the story for the better. Whenever a major character dies, or even it doesn't have to even be a major character, because just look at Half Sack, the old prospect, when he died. Half Sack wasn't, I don't know if you can call him a main character, but he was definitely a reoccurring character. But he wasn't that big of a character. When he died, though, it made a difference. It changed the whole situation, And then, of course, we all know about what happened at his funeral at the beginning of season 3. Someone got killed in that. You see what I'm saying? For the most part, it seems like when the major characters die, the story progresses for the better. And I don't mean for the better as in everything's going to be fine and dandy. I mean for the better as in it becomes a better story. It's more complex. It's more dynamic, more intricate. Give me a second, guys. I'm tongue-tied right now. Intricate. More intricate. It's more elaborate. So, with that said, that's going to do it for this review. I'm trying to think I'm not really going to discuss the preview too much. I mean, I've already discussed the whole thing with the Bobby's vote and the possibility of Juice still being alive, which there is no sign of that in the preview, mind you. But there are signs of other things to come in the preview, which I'm just going to leave out of this review. Why? Because it'll give y'all something to talk about in the comments below. In the comments below, guys, let me know what y'all thought about this week's episode. Let me know what you think about my theory about Juice. Go back, watch the episode if you can, and pay attention at the very end of it, because I swore I heard a branch break and I heard a thud. Okay? And if Juice ass is hanging from a fucking branch, why would there be a thud unless his body dropped? And what's the point of having his body, the possibility of his body dropping after he's already hung himself? I find that highly improbable, especially since he hung himself with a chain and not a rope. Chains don't break like ropes, okay? So let me know what you think in the comments below. And also, I'm pretty sure most of you have seen the preview. What do you think is going to pop off next week, especially with that whole Piney thing? Because I'm not even going to bring that up, but y'all know what I'm talking about, because Piney plays a larger role in next week's episode. What do y'all think is going to spark off with that thing? So with that said, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to wrap this review up. This has been Larry Williams, OAW Commander-in-Chief, signing off. And until next time, peace.